Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on my channel. It is Kevin here and this is Minis by Kev, and it's finally time to get back to working on the cardboard castle. If you don't know what this is, I'll go ahead and link the playlist above. Basically what I'm doing is I'm making a cardboard castle. It's part of Bentley House Minis Patreon. We are all doing a room and a castle together, and I'm trying to use as much recycled material as possible in this project, and I have a running total of how much I've spent on the project so far, which if I spend any more money in this video, I'll put it up so you can see. But I'm trying to see how cheaply I can make this project and just get it done, you know? It's been in the works for a long time. I've been working on this for, I don't even know, I don't know if it's been a year or 2 years. Time just flies by. I think it's been 2 though. Or close to 2, if not 2. And this is where we're at. So the inside is almost, the whole project's almost done. We only have a few more left. I have finished there's so much cat hair in here because my cat loves to just hang out in this, but I finished the stonework finally. The steps are back there underneath the rug. There's the rug. The two, what are they called? Banners that have fallen down. Well, they're not both fallen, but they're kind of distressed. I've also done tables as well as benches. That'll all be in the playlist that you can go back and watch if you'd like. In this video, we're finally going to put some stained glass window back here. As you can see from the back, it is kind of a mess. I do plan to finish this eventually, but for now, we're worried about the inside. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the camera around and we're gonna start on this. I'm a little nervous, just based on the fact that I watched a tutorial on what I need to do and I don't know if I can do it. But you know what, that's part of the fun, you know? See if you can get yourself to do something you've never done before and see if you don't mess it up. So let's go ahead and turn on the camera and get started. To start this project, I needed to find some stained glass. I knew I wanted to do something naturey, something bright and vibrant, and I ended up finding some real stained glass online that I liked, so I blew them up. And I do link these below. These are real stained glass by real artists, so I do link them below. The website's talking about them and who the artists are. I took them and blew them up to the dimensions I needed, and then I kind of traced out the plastic from some toy packaging to get the right dimensions for the window. And then it was time to start drawing on the lines for the stained glass. Now this was a very long process. I kept having to take it off, hold it up, make sure I was getting all the lines. And I'm not gonna lie, this is a very long process. This is very tedious, and I realized you can't really see what I'm doing here because I'm doing it on top of the stained glass. But what you want to do is you want to just trace out where all the leading would be on the stained glass in the Sharpie, so that way I had some guidelines later for when I was painting it with the paint glue mixture I'll show you later. Like I said, very tedious. Very time consuming. I spent a lot of time. This project was deceitfully long for, how simple it ends up being, but in the end, it ends up being worth it. Just know that if you want to do something similar, it will take a lot of time, and this is a part of it that will take a lot of time. So here's where it's time to do some math. I will say my first disclaimer is that this price does not actually include anything I would already own. So it does not include paint that I've already previously bought. It does not include the pasta boxes that I use, because I did have to buy the pasta, but the boxes were just leftover recycling material. So keep in mind when I say this is total of things I bought specifically to work on this project, not including other things. If you're doing something like this, you will have to buy other things. So for the glue at a local store, I paid $4.25 with tax, which brings the total project amount to $22.99. Again, that is stuff that I bought specifically for this project, not stuff I already own, such as paint and pasta boxes. To do the colored glass part of the stained glass, I watched a lot of different tutorials, like 12. So I don't really have one specific way I was going off of, otherwise I would link it below, but a lot of them suggested using clear glue mixed with paint. Now, what I will say up front is that a lot of people say this, but they don't give an actual ratio, so I was kind of just eyeballing it and estimating it, which honestly leads to some downfall later. It does lead to some problems because I didn't know the correct ratio to do because I wanted it to still be opaque, but I didn't want it to be too thick because I've seen where people do it where you can't actually see through the glass, and I did not want that either. I actually didn't add the leading in yet because I just wanted the outline of the leading, and I knew that I'd be doing it a different way later, which I will end up showing you. But that's why this is more of like a color in the lines, which is difficult. And what I will warn you is that this is an incredibly time-consuming project. Between the 3 windows, I believe it took me like between 6 or 7 hours. It doesn't seem like it would take that long, but really trying to paint all these little tiny details, all these lines, it was incredibly time consuming. Again, I really like how it turned out, and I'm not upset with the time I spent, but don't go into this thinking it's just going to take you a couple hours and you'll be done, because it is time consuming. Once I was done with the painting portion, this is what they look like. Yes, I know they look a little messy, but these are not done. This is just the painting portion, and I wanted to show you what they look like after the painting portion was done. And even though I had not aged or weathered them yet, I had to know what they would look like in the castle. So I taped them up just so I can get a glance at what they would look like in the end. Once the painting was done, it was time to put in the leading. I had a couple different ideas of how I might do this. I thought about puffy paint, but I thought it might be too big for 24th scale. I thought about just doing some gallery glass, but I was trying to keep the cost down. I thought about yarn, but I thought that'd be too thick. And so I ended up with quilting thread. Now this is like a cheap dollar quilting thread that I already own, so I'm not adding into the total for the project. However, if I thought that the painting is what was going to take forever, I was sorely mistaken. Like I said, tedious project. Very time consuming. This portion took me about 16 to 18 hours. And I know that sounds completely off the walls, and it is. It is completely off the walls. And I think that, you know, to be into miniatures, you got to be a little off the walls, because I put so much time and effort into this, because what I did is a single strand of thread was too short. So I had to double it up. So every portion of leading on this is 2 strands of quilting thread that I've then glued together with the clear glue so that way it would stick together. And then I had to slowly lay it down over all the black Sharpie. And yes, 16 to 18 hours doing this portion of it. Do I think it looks good? Yes. Would I ever do it again? Absolutely not. At least not on something this large. And to be honest, I don't normally work in 24th scale anyway. I normally work in 12th scale. I only did this one in 24th scale because of the grand room I wanted to do. I knew I didn't have a lot of space for. So would I do a stained glass with thread of some kind? Maybe in the future. But I honestly think that this was... I can't decide. I can't decide if it's worth it or not. You let me know. You let me know in the comments if you think that the thread and the time I spent on it was worth it. In this shot, I just wanted to show you what they look like next to each other once the leading was done. So here it is with it, and here it is without it. As you can see, it makes it a little bit more crisper. And here is the main stained glass window once all the leading was done. I believe that the main one took about 8 hours, and both the side ones each took about 4 hours, which is how I came up with the 16 hours. But this is what it looks like once the leading is complete. When doing the leading, I noticed that some of the paint glue mixture as well as some of the strings were coming up, so I decided to break out the old Mod Podge because I wanted to give it one layer to kind of seal it all down, which for the most part works. Some parts still peel a little bit, but the Mod Podge definitely helped. And then I also wanted to do the Mod Podge because I wanted it to have a kind of coating on top to help with the streakiness. I don't think it helped the streakiness, but I do like that it made it look more like glass. So this is how they turned out. As you can kind of see on camera, let me see if I can get a light shining on here to try and like reflect it a little bit. There we go. And the Mod Podge did do some texture on it, and I don't hate it. I do like how they turned out. However, if I hold it up to the light, which I can't really do on here, the streakiness of the blue is pretty bad. And I knew it would be based on when I painted it. I knew it would be the best. I think from far away, you won't be able to see too much anyway. And when it is in the castle, there's not gonna always be a light shining in through the back. So I think it'll be fine. We're gonna go ahead and start aging these though. So I got my X-Acto knife, and I'm gonna get some dirty paint water, and we're gonna rough this up a little bit. When working on my last project, which was the abandoned Tunnel of Love swan boat, I realized that when it comes to aging, I was kind of going about it in a haphazard way where I was just like, oh, this will look cool, this will whatever, without really thinking about how something actually ages throughout time. So when I started working on the stained glass window and aging it, I wanted to go with a more specific approach, a more purposeful approach. I wanted to take out pieces of glass that maybe would have broken if an entire section broke out, and the parts where maybe another piece had broken because somebody threw a rock through it or something like that. I wanted to do more of like a splinter effect because I wanted it to look purposeful. I didn't want it to just be all over the place. I wanted it to look like this is how it would actually age. So in doing that, I kind of just cut out different pieces that I thought would maybe look interesting missing. After that, I start doing the paint wash, and I wanted these to look really dirty, really grungy, really grimy because they are going to look, I want them to look very old. And I actually do plan on eventually putting more aging into this, but I can't do that until later. So for now, I just had to settle for cutting out pieces and doing a paint wash. Once they were done and dry, it was time to temporarily install them. Again, I will be doing the back of this project at a later date, and I really can't install these permanently until I get to that portion because it's honestly what's going to be holding these in. I didn't make them exact to fit in these holes because I wanted something that would hold on the back of the project, if that makes sense. It's kind of like an anchor, so I needed it to be more concrete. But because of that, I can only temporarily install these. So for here I am just temporarily installing them with some packing tape, knowing that they probably wouldn't hold up for very long, but just long enough for us to get an idea of what they'll look like at the very end, and so I could take a thumbnail because I may be a miniaturist, but I am also a YouTuber. So that is that. This is this. I should not have picked this up with these things in it because they are loose and falling. But that's what it looks like. I am quite happy with how it turned out. They are finished for now. They are not finished permanently. Mostly because, I don't know if you can tell they're moving. They're not actually completely stuck on here. I had to tape them down with packing tape, and that's just because I still want to do a little bit of work on them later, but I can't really do the work I want to do until I'm doing the final aging for the project. I want to add some moss, some vines. I think that's mainly it, moss and vines, but I don't want to do that until I'm doing that to the whole room. So I can only tape them on now just to see what they look like in the end. This is what they look like though. I like how it turned out. The back of this project is still pretty messy. But you know, that'll get done eventually. That's like the last thing we're gonna do on this project. But I'm happy with it. I mean, I definitely learned some things. I definitely will probably do some things differently, as you probably heard from the voiceover. But overall, for a project that I didn't want to buy anything for, I'm quite happy because I did have to buy the clear drying glue, but I didn't want to buy gallery glass. I couldn't remember the name of it. It took me like a full 10 seconds off camera to remember the name. I didn't want to buy gallery glass. I think if I were to do this again in a miniature that I was like not concerned about pricing, if I was just like, I just want to look as best as possible. I don't care about, like, money is no object. Not saying it's like super expensive, but again, I was trying to do this project as cheap as possible. If I did not care about spending the money on something more expensive, I'd probably do gallery glass just because I know that it will look better. I also think that overall I probably just did the glue to paint ratio wrong, but that is to be expected with things that I do. For some reason I can't follow tutorials correctly. But yeah, I think for doing a tutorial I'd never done before and for trying to do it as cheaply as possible, they turned out pretty good. So that's it for this week. That's it. Isn't that nice? That's nice. I like it. I'm really happy with it. For my next video, I'm gonna be working on something that I know I have never done before, and I don't know how I'm gonna do it because I have no tutorials on how to do it, and I don't even know how I'm gonna make it out of. But I can't tell you more than that. It's something with the castle room. So, you know, make sure you're watching next week or next video. Probably 2 weeks. Anyway, that's it for this week. If you like me or you like miniatures, make sure you hit that subscribe button below and the like button because it helps out with my algorithm stuff, you know. And anyway, until my next video, I'll see you later. Goodbye.